Well, we're honored and privileged to have Ms. Shae Rozzi, who is an anchor with KOKI Fox 23 News. And she and I had the opportunity to meet recently at a dinner program. And when we were visiting, I think I either extended the invitation or she had offered, and just looked forward to the opportunity to engage with our students. And so I want to thank Ms. Rozzi for this opportunity to visit with us about what maybe she sees happening in the communications field, maybe some advice and counsel that you can provide to our students as they prepare themselves for career in journalism, and maybe even share with us your story of how you are where you are today, and maybe advice you'd give them about taking that same road or maybe deviating from that and going another route to get to ultimately maybe their dream job in journalism.
All right, that sounds good. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, because I plugged in my my headphones here, but the audio was still coming through my computer. So I just want to make sure, as long as you guys can hear me loud and clear, we're good. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Shae Rozzi with Fox 23 News. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate your time. It's an exciting time and challenging time in journalism. We see a lot of people now leaving this field, especially after the pandemic and the protests and the politics. There's a lot of attack on the media, whether what we were talking about with COVID was reliable information or were part of the problem. And the same thing with politics and how the pandemic became political. I mean, so it's been a rough couple of years in the industry. And so there are a lot of people who've decided to leave it because, especially when you're in television and you're more in the public eye, and with social media nowadays too, people can just attack you outright, personally in the comment section on your social media, et cetera. And so it can be difficult. You're just trying to do your job and you get criticized for it at different levels. And then there are other people who are thankful, of course, for the job you're doing, knowing that you are not just repeating information, that you are trying to provide your viewers with the very best information that you have. That's where citing sources is so important, really, in any story that you're doing, but especially anyone that is controversial, that's raising a lot of questions or raising a lot of doubts. So I'm so excited that you are studying journalism, that you have an interest in it. And so keep this in mind as we go through the discussion today. We're hiring. So, whether you are looking for something part-time while you're putting yourself through school, or you're about to graduate, we have positions open, reporting positions open. We have photographer position open, editing, producers who will write the whole show, their bigger picture, and write a lot of stories, and directors and engineering and sales. So, I mean, there's so many things that are in television news and not just reporting on camera, as you often see when you're watching the news at home. Okay, so a little bit about my story. I grew up, I'm the youngest of four, raised by a single mom, and my mom always had the news on. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia. So I used to watch NBC4 there in the D.C. area. And NBC Nightly News, that's what I was raised on, and the Today Show. And in high school is when Katie Couric landed her job on the Today Show. And what I loved about watching her is I could see her have just great knowledge, asking, smart questions from the newsmakers of the day, whether it's holding someone accountable or just finding out, something that's going on. You could see her be a serious journalist and then turn around and dress as Peter Pan for Halloween and go flying across the audience. And what I also noticed is my mom said one day, I bet you'd be good at that. So I started watching the news more closely. And what I love about news is that it is different every single day. So if you are interested in a career that's not the same thing in and out, then maybe news is right up your alley. And that's what I've noticed too. I've been in news now 25 years. And again, every day is different. So after high school, I went to Virginia Tech. I graduated from Virginia Tech. And when I was interning my senior year, there was a reporter I was shadowing, and he said, I bet this small town in Michigan where I first got started will hire you right out of school. And I'm thinking, I don't want to go that far from home. But sure as anything, back when we used to send VHS tapes of our reporter reels, that was one of the stations I first applied to, and I got a reporter job there. And I figured, you know what, the quicker I start somewhere, I'll get some experience, and the quicker I can move on to a city where I prefer to live closer to family, or move on up. So here's a sign of how things have changed. When I graduated from college in 1997, it was a go anywhere in the country, they will hire you, in a small town, small market. That's kind of where you cut your teeth. You can be green. You don't want to make mistakes, but people are very forgiving. So you would go to a small town, then you'd go to a medium-sized market like a Tulsa, Oklahoma, or I went back to Roanoke, Virginia, where I had interned in college. After a couple of years there, then you go to like a top 30 market. So I went to Raleigh, North Carolina. And then from there, you would normally go to a top 10 or a network, depending on what your dreams and goals are and where you want to work. Nowadays, because there is such a great need for journalists, and it's interesting, there's more competition than ever, but yet fewer people wanting to do the job. Nowadays, some people are being hired right out of college in a top 10, top 30 market. It's exciting for that person because they're going to make more money when they graduate and they're staring down student debt. But you're going to be joining journalists who have been doing this for a really long time. It's even more competitive for stories. And it's just, I just think there is value in starting off smaller, or even here, medium size, so you can just learn the ins and outs of the job, get some experience under your belt before you go big in the big city. So from Michigan, I went back to Roanoke. Then from Roanoke, I went to Raleigh. I was in Raleigh for 12 years, and I was a weekend reporter, then weekend morning anchor, weekend evening anchor. And then I got the job at WSB in Atlanta. So I went to a top 10 market. I had traveled enough with my job that I kind of got the taste of a network correspondent. And once I got married and had a family, had my daughter, it's like, you know what, this is enough traveling. I don't want to be a network correspondent where you have to have a go bag and they just call you up and say, go, you don't know when you're coming back home. So we can talk more about that if you have questions about, you know, how do you juggle family and your job? But then from Atlanta, Cox Media Group that bought FOX23, they needed a female anchor at night. So they encouraged me to apply and then help mentor the younger journalists. So I've now been here for 10 years, rounding out 25 years in television news. So far, Tulsa's been really good to us and we love it here. So I feel like I've been rambling and rambling. So if you have some questions, I'm glad to go ahead and start answering those, and I can, you know, kind of go a little bit more in depth on things if you'd like.
Absolutely. And I have most of our student questions here today. I'm Sam Levrault. I'm the managing editor for the student paper. It's nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Yes, nice to see you.
And I want to touch a little bit. You mentioned you were a reporter in these different cities. I think one thing that would be nice for our students to know is what has been the difference between being a reporter and then working the news desk? What's the difference between those two positions?
Between reporting and anchoring?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Okay. Well, so my going into my senior year, the summer before my senior year, I used to wait tables, and I apologize, we are in an active newsroom, so you may hear some news gathering going on right now too. But so when I was waiting tables to pay my way through college, it was right outside the federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. And I saw Linda Lopez, who I used to watch on Channel 4. So I ran out there in my waiter uniform. It's like, I'm sorry to bother you before your live shot, but I'm studying journalism right now. What advice do you have? And she told me right then, she said, the first thing, never say go anywhere in the country. They will hire you to get some experience and then move on up, as I mentioned. And don't say you want to be an anchor right away, because it sounds like you just want to be on TV. That's something that you earn after you become a reporter. And I'll go into that a little bit more too. And so, and then her third advice was call me up and shadow me. And she followed through on that. And I was able to shadow her for a day. So that turned out to be awesome and fun. But so one of the big differences with reporting and anchoring is when you report, you are, you know, you might hear about a story either on Facebook, you might see something that's happening in your town, something that someone posted about, or a call may come into the newsroom. And as a reporter, you start making those calls, looking for information. You go out and you do the interviews, get the video, and you put the story together, and then you present it. And you know, you're out there on breaking news. So you're making contacts, you're meeting people in the community, you're learning your community, because you usually go somewhere different nearly every single day. So it's a great way to understand the layout of the city, you know, the city leaders and everything like that. When you're anchoring, you're kind of leading the broadcast and leading the reporters and guiding the viewer through all the events that are happening or that are going to be happening today, tomorrow, if we're doing a preview. And one of the things when I say about you earn your position on the anchor desk is after reporting for so long, when there is breaking news, you can tell when people have been anchoring for a while because they've been reporting for a while. So Sara Whaley, who's my co-anchor and sits right in front of me here, if we hear breaking news like the St. Francis shooting, let's take that for example. One of our weather chasers happened to be going by St. Francis and messages the newsroom, there's a huge police presence at St. Francis. And that came in right around 4:55, 5 o'clock, and our newscast starts at 4:58. And so he snapped a picture, let us know, stopped. And then so we immediately start making calls. We have a tower cam that looks right there toward 61st and Yale and could see the police presence. So we were able to go on the air with breaking news. There's a large police presence there. And Sarah's been the crime reporter. She's been here 10 years now, and most recently as a crime reporter. So she has a ton of police contacts. So she's messaging with them right away, and then they confirm that it is an active shooter at St. Francis. So we're on the anchor desk and we're talking about, based on how we've had our experience out there reporting in the field, we're able to do that from the desk until we can physically get reporters there on the ground and start asking questions of police and witnesses. So we can say, and what you'll see now too is a lot of what we call process reporting. What is the process of getting the information and sharing it? So it's even sharing. One of our weather chasers saw the large police presence, let us know. We popped up our camera here and we can see the active lights and the presence continue to grow there. And then Sarah can say, I just confirmed through my police contacts, they're responding to an active shooter situation. This is now an all call situation. So we start reporting first from the anchor desk until our reporters can get there. So that's just an example of your experience as a journalist, as a reporter, helps you out when you're anchoring. When you report, you're going live often in the field, and that helps you build up that ability to ad lib on the anchor desk. Sometimes when live shots may fail or new information is coming in, you have to do a lot of ad libbing too, and just kind of saving yourself and continue and saving the newscast and keeping it going. So that's where the experience helps too.
Absolutely.
Just one note on that. Now the difference,
Absolutely.
I will say, since I've been anchoring the entire time up here, I still go out and will shoot special reports, but I'm not reporting every single day. And I would say a downfall to that is that I haven't gotten to see the community the way that a reporter does. As I said, a reporter and photographer, when they go out every single day to a different location, whether they're going to Muskogee, Okmulgee, McIntosh County, Grand Lake, or all over Tulsa to get to know Tulsa. That is one of the beauties of reporting or having a split job where you report and then anchor for, a later show.
So a couple of things you touched, I caught on to the contacts are very helpful, right? And no matter what role you're playing. But I'm curious because being a new journalist, right, stepping in that world, you kind of have to learn how to develop these contacts. But especially if you do end up moving and you're doing that reporter job and you're getting in a new city, every time you're in a new city, it's like starting all over. So for you, can you speak on that experience of trying to build those contacts, especially maybe some pieces of advice for our students as they're starting to build those up as well?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to talk about building up contacts in two ways. One, when you have an internship while you're still in college or while you're meeting people, maybe you're turning stories for your journalism class. When you meet people, always save their number, their email, their contact information, because you never know what story in the future you may need to refer back to them on or how they may help you out. And also, so when you meet someone, hi, I'm new, or I'm reaching out to you because I'm working on a story about this, and I wondered if you could help me out with an interview. Just the other day, we talked about this radioactive waste that was found in Broken Arrow, but it sounds like a crazy big deal. But then it's like, well, is it a big deal? Should we be freaking out or should we not be freaking out? So then we looked up, the University of Tulsa has a geologist, within their engineering in science department, we found a geologist who was able to talk to us. So sometimes it's like, what do I need for this story? What do I need to bring value to our viewers? And so it's researching, kind of like what you would for a paper, you know, what's the source that has this information? But in this case, it's a person who could talk to us about this, to break it down, what this means to our readers or to our viewers or listeners, and contacting them and just saying, I'm working on this story about this, and I wondered if you could provide some information or context about this. And then hopefully they'll do an interview with you. Obviously, if it's television, it's on camera. If it's radio or newspaper, you may just record it. So you have the audio to work with. And then I always ask at the end, you know, is there anything else you're working on that you feel would be a great news story? You know, sometimes it's special projects, sometimes it's something fun they might even be doing with their church that has nothing to do with the job you're calling them about. So I always ask, just like when I ask police about anything, okay, anything else going on that we haven't asked you about? Because you're looking for stories to cover every single day. So you always want to build contacts by starting that relationship. And even if you're trying to hold someone accountable, you want to be positive with them. You know, I understand, you know, you did this and our viewers are asking, why is that okay? So walk us through why you did that, or, you know, why is this, you know, okay? So you always want to try to be respectful. And then also in terms of building contacts, networking is so important. So right now, as a student, if you're meeting people, if you're interning, meeting people in this industry, always get their name, their number, and ask, you know, can I shadow you one day, or can I follow up with you, or just, you know, sit down, have a conversation about your career. The way I see it, I know LinkedIn and Facebook has really helped the networking part of things now, but everyone started somewhere. Everyone is going somewhere, or they have friends in the business who have gone somewhere. So I never hesitate to help someone try to land a job through the networking that I've done. And I always try to encourage other people, hey, it's your internship. Go up, meet everyone here, because everyone here started somewhere and has friends going somewhere. And so it's really also up to you to be the go-getter to help with your destiny. You've got to be the one to put yourself out there and meet people, meet contacts, and develop the story too.
Absolutely. And I would say a reputation is also important as a journalist. Not only, you know, we can get into the whole trusting the news and media and everything like that, but also individually as a journalist, your reputation is also important. So as you mentioned, you know, you want to have a positive relationship, even if you are having that hard discussion, having, you know, a relationship where they know they can trust you to report accurately, to report truthfully, and the whole truth, right? So I want to pivot a little bit to kind of some of the bouncing questions, because we do have our students, you know, being in community college, they are in many different phases of life. There are some who are, you know, they're early 20s and they're breaking in, and some who are returning. So you mentioned a little bit about having a family and how that's, you know, maybe changed a little bit regarding your position and your role. How do you find a balance between, you know, working, but then also, you know, spending time with your family?
Well, I definitely have experienced working mom's guilt, especially working a night shift, because my daughter gets home from school. She's now in 10th grade. She just turned 16 and gets her license on the 21st. So we're 9 days out. And in fact, my husband and I said this morning, it's an absolute miracle that we made it to 16 and her getting her license, that we've been able to get her to school. I take her in the morning, so at least get that time together. Oftentimes, if my husband's in town because he travels for work, then we all go together in the morning. But he or her friend's mom can bring them home from school, my daughter and her best friend. And so, but I feel that guilt that I'm not there after school. I'm not there to help her with homework, you know, or to cook dinner and all those things. And I do get a dinner break. Well, I'll go home after the 6 o'clock news and be home for about 45 minutes. And that doesn't sound like much. I drive 20 minutes to spend 30 to 45 minutes and then drive 20 minutes back. But you know what, that 30 to 45 minutes, I always say, is better than nothing. So, and I always do an after school check-in. So I usually call her around 4 o'clock, like, how was your day? What kind of homework do you have tonight? You know, there is this in the fridge for dinner, or she's great about making herself some dinner as well. But it has been hard. And sometimes I wonder, like, am I making the right decision? But then I talk to other people and they will tell me, you know, you love what you do. She's seeing that you can try to balance family and career. It doesn't, you know, it's never perfect, but no job is. Even those who, you know, even moms who stay at home sometimes find themselves frustrated, or find their child in their room, just blocking off mom and dad. It's just like, I'm home, but we're not really communicating right now. So really you just do the best you can. And I hope that another mom shared this advice with me, that it's not always the quantity of time, the number of hours you may spend with your child each week, but it's also the quality of time that you spend together. So even though our time is very limited during the week, I'll try on weekends, you know, do you have theater rehearsal, or, you know, do you want to practice driving? What do you want to do? So we can spend this time together and just, you know, hang out together to try to make up during the week. Some of the events I MC on the weekends, I will invite her along with me if, you know, if it's something she's interested in going to. So you just try to make up for it. But it is hard. It's hard, but I have a very supportive husband too. I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that I'm doing and succeeding in this career if I didn't have someone who supported me. But that does lead me to another topic. One of our reporters asked me early on when I got here, how did this work out with your husband? You know, how does it work out when you're dating someone and you're constantly, you know, you're constantly looking at news, you feel like you're constantly, you know, you're not constantly being called in, but if there's something big, you got to drop what you're doing and go in. You know, there is, you know, the St. Francis shooting is an example. A big tornado when that came through Midtown is another example. It's like when something big happens, viewers are turning to you for the information. So they want, it's all hands on deck. No matter if you're off work, if you're available, come in, because you want to help your team, you want to help your viewers. And that takes someone who's understanding, because news is overnights. It's a day shift, a long day shift, 9 to about 7 p.m., or an evening shift like I work, which is essentially about 2 to 11 by the time I get home. But the overnight shift, that can be midnight to 9, or our morning anchors work, I think it's 3:30 to noon. So, I mean, they're weird hours. But other people, if someone who works in medicine and someone who's a first responder, they're also very understanding, because they get the whole all hands on deck. When there's an emergency, you got to go.
The being on call, right?
Yes,
Being ready to
it
go.
is. It is. And so that's where my husband and I haven't had help. Our family doesn't live here. And that's where, thank goodness, we're blessed with good friends and their parents, or our friends who are parents, who have helped us out tremendously. But if you work in a town where you have family, they can support you. You know, your mom and dad might be able to babysit for you, or you know, if your sister is home with her kids, she might be able to help, you know, things like that. So that is something to keep in mind, depending on what city you want to work in. Do we have help if we are starting a family or growing our family?
Absolutely. And I would say I've been on the other side of that. My parents have been in radio my whole life. So, you know, my mom was a program director, my stepdad's an engineer. So for me, I've been on the other side of that. And I would say taking the time, definitely that quality you were talking about does make the difference. But also, like you said, going to things together. There's nothing saying if you're at the Christmas parade, you can't bring your family with you to the Christmas parade, right? And it almost makes it more fun, because they get to be a part of it. They get to say, oh yeah, I get to see what you do every day, right?
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, we've gotten to do some pretty cool stuff too, you know, so there are some advantages too.
Oh, there are definitely some fun bits.
Yes, exactly.
I did want to ask, I mean, we want to be respectful of your time, but there was a question I asked on Saturday, actually, when your news director was joining us for the workshop that were held by NABJ and TCC. And the question was, who should a new journalist get to know when they enter a newsroom? whether it's somebody that can serve as a mentor or an advocate for them, who is someone you can recommend that they need to get to know?
Okay. They should definitely get to know the news director, since they are indeed the hiring manager for the newsroom. But, depending on their position, and I hope you guys can still hear me because I know there's cross conversation. You're good? Okay, cool. Okay, so definitely get to know the news director. And really, you really want to meet as many people as possible. If you're looking to report, you also want to find out, meet the different reporters. There are some who are called MMJs. That's a multimedia journalist. Oftentimes when you're first starting out from college, you are an MMJ. Back in '97, I was called a one-woman band, where I was the photographer, I was the reporter. So I set the camera up and did my, stand-up that you see, and then you edit the story. And nowadays you even set the camera back up and you do your own live shot. We help train you, obviously, to do those things. And then that's where you also want to meet the photographers and the chief photographer, who will help train you on the camera. You also want to meet reporters. How do they generate contacts? How do they generate story ideas? I will say things have gotten much easier because we use Microsoft Teams. So we have a story ideas channel. Do you guys use Teams? Are you familiar?
We have OneDrive in Teams through our school. So it's how we submit our stories is OneDrive. Okay. So we're all familiar with that. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we have a daily news channel, and that's like what is happening today, or we're sending this person a breaking news, and they will update the story within that chat. So then we try to streamline it all in one place. We have a digital channel in there. So that is for if you've got pictures for social media that we need to go along with your story. Our reporters are also expected to write either a brief online script or some bullet points for our digital producers to be able to put that online until the story airs. And then we can, include the video clip that aired in the newscast. But really, you want to meet the news director. You want to get to know some of the reporters and the producers, because, our 5 o'clock producer, he puts together, he's to my left, he puts together an hour-long newscast, and he's the one, along with the assistant news director, you communicate with and update on your story development throughout the day. And then they can help determine, well, are you the lead story? Or is it not so hard hitting that it has to be the lead, but it's really teasy and people will stick around for that? So you might want that, in the second half hour, so we can carry the viewership over and into our 5:30 half hour. So my advice is really try to meet as many people as possible, because they can help you out in different ways. And I think when you ask people about their job and understand their role in the newsroom, every single person is integral in getting our newscast on the air. Whether it's the assignment desk, who not only listens to scanners, takes phone calls, looks at messages, then they make the phone calls to dispatch or whoever it is who, brought in that story tip. They will also help assign our photographers if they need to go shoot stories without a reporter, some of the shorter stories that you see. And they also write stories for the web. So our assignment editors have now become digital content producers. And they wear many hats. I mean, that's a lot of jobs to think about, a lot of responsibilities. Our editors also help with the live shots out in the field to make sure the crew is feeding in the story that's going to air. Or as an editor, do they need to add more video to it? They're also the ones who put the video on TV. Our directors, the ones punching the buttons and everything else, and making sure we're on camera and that we have audio and everything else. So really, everyone has a role to make a newscast successful every single day. So I say get to know every single person you can, and you can kind of feel like, what is it that you have an interest in? Because maybe you want to write, but you don't want to be on camera. And that's where you could be a producer or a digital content producer. So you can produce the newscast, what goes on air, or what goes on the website. There's just so many different roles that think about what interests you, and we try to find a good fit for you. Absolutely. It's called a news team for a reason, right? You all come together to pull this off, especially to be able to pull up multiple times a day, every day. It takes a lot.
It does.
I did want to give a chance. Was there anything you wanted to share with our students that maybe we haven't had a chance to go over yet?
You mentioned reputation and how you want to have a good reputation when you are interviewing people, and you want to be respectful, even if you have to keep your personal beliefs aside. and what are the facts of the story and what are the two sides to the story. Doesn't matter how you feel, you know, how do the viewers feel, or if you may feel exactly how another viewer may feel, and like, well, viewers are asking us this. But again, you always want to be respectful, and you want to share both sides of every story. But also, in building your reputation, be careful about what you post online. I'm sure you already hear that a million times, but if you're out, you know, you're 21 or older, you're out drinking with your friends, well, you can post pictures with your friends, but don't post pictures with alcohol in the picture. Don't post pictures of your friends, you know, physically drinking the alcohol, things like that. You know, you might do silly stuff, and you've grown up in this digital age where everything is shared online, but there are things you don't want shared online that can come back to bite you when you know, are trying to apply for a job. You just, we've had people, we have a specific social media policy in place, and, you know, people have been punished, or, you know, they've lost their job based on what they've done online. So, and it can be arguing with someone. Here's the thing. We know there are trolls out there. They purposely are trying to get under your skin. They purposely will, you know, Michelle, our morning anchor, has posted some things when people have sent mean emails about her appearance. And then she does it as like, be kind. You know, it doesn't take long to be kind, and it doesn't take much, but she, you know, tries to handle it in a respectful way. There are some people who will say things, and sometimes it's just best not to respond at all, because they want a response out of you, and they want to just keep it going, egg you on. They're so excited they got under your skin. So it's hard to bite your tongue and scroll on, but it's the best thing to do sometimes. So be careful what you post, and be careful how you engage with someone who you know is just trying to get to you.
Just as you can amplify the good things, you can also amplify the negatives. So you want to be careful, especially once, you know, you become the public figure in front of the camera and things. You do become a role model. So it is something that is wonderful to remind our journalists as they're building their reputation and, you know, being online now.
Yes.
I did also want to give you opportunity. I know you said FOX23 is hiring, you all do internships. What are some opportunities you can recommend for our students?
Okay, so right now I was just looking at our jobs board when I came back into the newsroom. I know we have a photographer position that just opened up. We have a reporter position. So if you see reporter and multimedia journalists, the reporters are someone we hope have a little bit more experience where they can go a little bit more in depth with their stories. So we assign them with a photographer. And then the multimedia journalist is, you are hired with the expectation of shooting, reporting, and editing your own story. Though we do try as often as possible to still pair you with a photographer, you just need to know that expectation coming in. It's like getting a photographer is like a bonus.
But you're going to get the job done either way.
Yes, exactly. And you're still going to get on air either way. So, you know, so that's a good thing, is that we're going to get you on air, but just know the amount of work you do might vary. It's not that reporters do less. In fact, they're expected, like I said, to have a more in-depth story, maybe set up more interviews, and have some longer pieces in there too. But there is just a different level of experience too. So multimedia journalists, reporter, and photographer. I don't know that we have an editor or show producer position open yet, but people work under contracts. If you're a producer or on air, you work under a contract. And they're usually a 3-year contract, 2 to 3 years, kind of depending on the position. And so after 3 years, if you want to stay, things are going great. Normally, you're offered another contract to stay. But if you want to go on to a bigger market or a different city, you know, then you may leave after 3 years. So that's where you have that turnover. A lot of reporters, they want to move on to a bigger city. And so that's where you have that turnover, which the good news is that means there are positions available to someone starting out or someone looking for another job. And that's why, you know, we're constantly hiring.
And would you say there's an opportunity also, if maybe you're doing the multimedia journalist just to get in when those other positions open, to have that relationship already in the building? Would you say that may be helpful?
Yes, I would say that's very, very helpful. I remember, so my first job was reporting, and then to get back to Roanoke from that small town in Michigan, the news director had changed. So it wasn't the same news director I had interned under. And so he said, well, I have a morning reporter, noon producer position open. I'm like, I've never produced a day in my life, but I will happily learn if that helps get me back there and I can report in the morning show. And my reporting was often newsroom live shots, kind of rehashing the stuff from the night before. I didn't have a photographer unless there was breaking news, like I remember a huge semi truck fire and they, brought a photographer in because it closed down the interstate and all that stuff. But otherwise it was kind of writing and editing my own stuff and kind of doing a live shot like this right now in the newsroom. We just had a bigger newsroom camera set up, but so it does help. And I think that cross training also helps. It gives you greater respect for your producer when you're out there reporting. You're like, wait, I know from producing, everything is timed. So if they only gave me a minute and a half for my story and suddenly I take 3 minutes of airtime, then they have to kill stories that they worked on so they can keep within that, that news time that's allowed in between the commercial breaks. And so it gives you a greater respect for the people who you work with. But so yes, getting your foot in the door is great. Sometimes we're hiring in production positions, so it might be running the camera and working part-time from like, I think it's a 4 to 10:30 shift. So I know one of our camera operators graduated from Oral Roberts, and she does it as a part-time job, running the cameras during the 5 and 6 and 9 and 10 o'clock newscasts. So there are some part-time positions too. So while you're in college, that's a good way to get your foot in the door as well.
Wonderful. Well, I don't want to cut off. Was there anything else, or we want to let you get on with your day? But
well, if any of the students have any questions too, and another thing to think about, maybe you're taking a journalism class, but you're not sure if you want to be in journalism. Again, another way to see all that's happening, but not be the one who has to write it all. Maybe it's being a photographer. Maybe you like the visual part of it, and you can go out there and you can shoot the stories, either that the anchor and producer may put together, or you can shoot the story with a reporter, and then they write the story, and then you edit it for them as a photographer. Or maybe you want to edit. Maybe you don't want to be out and about every day, and you prefer more of a set schedule. You want to be in the building at a certain time, help with creativity, edit wise, and then head home. That's another position. Maybe you're really good at graphics. We have graphic artists who do some of the graphics within our stories, or the little box that you might see over the anchor's shoulder, and or some of the bullet points that you see, or the graphics that are made in some of our commercials. Or maybe you want to end up doing marketing or sales. So there's stuff in a newsroom and in a news station that doesn't mean you have to work on the news, if that makes sense. So if any of those other jobs sound appealing to you, again, like I said, we are always hiring, and we love it. People right here who want to live right here and stay here for a while. But I also want to make sure I answer any of your questions. So if any students have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Yes. So we did have some, and that's kind of what we've been filtering through. So I
Okay.
think we covered most of them. However,
Okay,
I did want to give a chance for Dr. Goodwin. Did you have anything you wanted to mention, or any points?
I think we hit a lot of the high points and highlights, and I really do appreciate. I know that for the students' internships, I consider those to be always an opportunity to get their foot in the door. And sometimes it may not necessarily be the ideal position they want, but the idea is getting your foot in the door and then navigating to where you'd like to go from there. So I do appreciate knowing of those opportunities, and hopefully you, Ms. Rozzi, as well as Mr. Volsapella,
Volpacella.
will keep us in mind when those opportunities do present themselves, so that we can send our students your way. But I know that's what's important to me. I can remember having internship opportunities, and I know that it could just benefit us greatly. But I can't say enough how much we appreciate you visiting with us today. But Rod, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add.
I did just realize, if our students are interested, who should they contact? If they're interested in a position or the internship, how can they get involved?
Okay, well, I can send, actually, Dr. Goodwin has Frank's email and my email as well. So if you want to reach out to either one of us, maybe a student has a follow-up question that perhaps they just didn't want to ask in front of the group, but they heard something during our discussion that they have further questions about, you are welcome to email me. In terms of internships and jobs, Frank is the best person to email. Of course, on our website, we should have those jobs posted there in fox23.com. I think it's in the About Us section. where you might be able to find career opportunities there. But yeah, definitely follow up, and glad to help in any way possible.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We've appreciated your time and your wisdom, and have a wonderful day. Good luck with your next newscast, and look forward to seeing you.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the invitation. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to each and every one of you. And I hope you learned something from this. I hope it gets you more excited about possibly pursuing a career in journalism. And I also want to be honest about how things work and how challenging it can be, at times in the family life too. And it can be stressful. Some days are a lot of fun and some days are just crazy. But that's okay. As I mentioned, it's different every day. And that's what's kept me interested in this career after so long. So thank you all again. I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays too.
Thank you.
Thank you too. All right,
Thank
bye.
you all. Bye-bye.